Good evening, and welcome to the Utilities Committee meeting tonight. We're going to start off with Ms. Cummings, who's going to give us some information about trash hauling.
Well, sort of. I know that at least some of you were here when Jean Forrest Redfern talked about the Council of Governments.
Yes.
Were all of you at that conversation? So we can, you were here from, okay, great. So mostly, I wanted to just give you all a chance to ask questions about the Council of Governments and sort of go through more of like what the operations would look like and what the structure would look like, so that we could do that in committee and make sure that at least some of you all had a deeper understanding of what Mr. Kangemi has been at the meetings representing the city of Nelsonville's interests for.
Well, I have one big question around this.
Yeah.
I understand Athens is trying to change this. Who is that? Athens is trying to change its contract.
So what I sent out to people quite a while ago, I think back in January, were proposed agreements and bylaws. And so all the meetings that Mr. Kangemi has been attending is with all of the rest of the founding members, including Athens. And they're supposed to be negotiating any changes they want to see to those two documents to come up with a final document. And it is true that the board structure has started to become a sticking point. And so I think that's what you're referencing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they would have the voting rights, to do or say whatever they want.
Yeah, so do you have an opinion about that?
Well, I certainly do. We are a small entity, but we are hopefully going to be a powerful one.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that if we're going to join, equality is my whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But that's me. Anybody else?
Well, my biggest thing is if we decide to join this, what is the benefits? What is the brass tacks? What's the benefits to our community to join this?
Mm-hmm.
Could you give us a little bit so that the people can kind of understand?
Yeah, so the primary benefits are cost savings that you get beyond and above a nonprofit if you are a governmental entity. In this case, they're going to include savings on retirement, savings on performance bonds. We would no longer have to pay for tags or highway tax for the trucks. So it's things of that nature that end up saving somewhere in the ballpark of like $130,000 a year. The other primary benefit is that you can have a shared regional approach to waste diversion, which means that you can share resources. So this is going to be similar to having like a city department for recycling and trash hauling and processing, but where that would be really expensive for Nelsonville to do on its own. If you're sharing staff and trucks and other resources with other communities in the region, you can help bring down those costs. And one of the big benefits of being a member of the Council of Governments is being able to be on the board. And so that you do have a say in what types of programs you feel like are really important for your community. You'll have a director who will tell you how expensive that program is so that you can decide whether it's worth it to you or not, so that it gives you a lot more control over things. It also means that Oh, I lost my train of thought, sorry.
I do that.
It also means that you'll have a lot more flexibility with the service. So, say something happens mid-contract that the city really wants to make changes to the service, it would be a lot easier to negotiate those changes. So instead of once every 5 years, which is traditionally how often Nelsonville has sent its contract out to bid, you have the ability to make changes directly with the organization, which you're going to be a part of, that is making those changes and being able to just be flexible. So, which I see as a really big benefit.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Is this, I was at your meeting at the library.
Yeah.
And thoroughly confused. And
Okay.
it sounds to me, which I don't know too much about this, but it sounds to me like this is Athens Hawking restructuring the way they're doing things, offering the same trucks, the same staff, but what's the difference?
Yeah, so the nonprofit would no longer have, so the operations would be under the umbrella of the Council of Governments. And so the board of the Council of Governments would be made up of the founding members, the way the current bylaws are written, each founding member would determine for themselves who they put on that board. So either a city administrator or a council person. And so the board would actually be made up of somebody representing the governments that are part of the Council of Governments, as opposed to the nonprofit board, which is made up of citizens that do it. So, but it would be the nonprofit, little bit of history. So we were initially formed by a group, a nonprofit that was in the city of Athens that was hosting recycling events and trash cleanups and things like that, because the county, when I was growing up, and I think age-wise, you all are probably familiar with this, had a lot of dump sites everywhere, right? And so this group was sort of working on that, but also trying to recycle the things that were recyclable. They got a grant in combination with the Athens Planning Department that started the first recycling center. And then that went on to be housed with the county health department and then the solid waste district once those were formed in the late 80s, early 90s. So the nonprofit existed in conjunction with the solid waste district, and we used to do the operations in kind of a complicated legal relationship. When we split in 2014 and the solid waste district, county commissioners were no longer the board of the nonprofit. All of the money that built the sorting facility came from the solid waste district. So we used to have, all of the employees were public employees, they still are. So this is just taking it back to being a little bit more like what it was when it was with the solid waste district. But instead of just the county commissioners having a say in what happens, it would include the cities, which is considered a benefit because the cities have the population density, and it makes there's a lot more impact in waste diversion if it comes from the municipalities.
So the $130,000 you mentioned, is that a savings that, say, Nelsonville could save, or is that a savings throughout the COG, or is that?
So that's the savings for the whole operations.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's for the whole operations. I mean, the benefit for Nelsonville, just in terms of straight up costs, is, the nonprofit already offers the services at cost. Nobody makes six figures that works at the recycling center. All of our employees are local, so none of the money is going outside of this region. So it stays in circulation here. With the Council of Governments, you can also just, it's gonna be really stable pricing, right? So you're gonna have cost of living increments because, you know, we use a lot of baling wire and the cost of metal went way up, so that increases expenses. So I'm not gonna say that it's gonna remain flat forever, but you're not gonna see huge jumps because somebody is getting rich off of the service.
So being small, are you going to charge us the same amount as everybody else?
So the way that so the decision for how people will be charged would be made by the board of the Council of Governments. I can say as an executive director who deals with the finances, I would heavily suggest that they be based on the expense for each individual community, because that varies really widely depending on what services the community wants, how much population density the community has, and how much trash the community generates. So
Well, I think we're
yeah.
all very happy with the fact that we go recycling now,
yes,
you know?
Yeah.
And anybody else got questions? Because I have someone in the audience that's gone crazy, and I'm gonna let them speak. Ms. LaRue,
I'm
quick
not
question.
exactly going crazy, but I saw you had extra forms there, which would be helpful. And then I saw that you noted that the citizens would no longer be involved with that. It would be just for the council and the commissioners. Is that correct?
Well, in some ways, citizens would have more of a voice,
How's that?
because currently our board of the nonprofit board is, you know, like it's picked based on their skills and they don't answer to anybody but themselves. Whereas if it goes to elected officials or city workers who are on the board, they're responsible to their electorate. Does that make sense?
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
But
so-
I'd like to see it in print.
Yeah. So with the 7-member board made up of, you know, community members from the area, they just represent themselves. And they're you know, it's an all volunteer board for the nonprofit. They're doing it because they really believe in waste diversion. And we have an amazing board right now in the nonprofit with people who bring really incredible skills
How many
to
do
the
you have on the board
organization.
right now?
7.
You do have 7.
We have 7.
And how many are from Athens? How many from the other places?
The vast majority are actually from Hocking County right now. So 6 are from Hocking County and 1 is from Athens. That has not always been the case. In the past, the majority of the board have been from Athens County.
Is there a buy-in or is any financial things that we have to do to be a part of this?
Yes, so the dues are going to be set initially by the negotiating team that are working on the agreements and bylaws. And currently they are in there at $500 a year. So that would be the dues. Yep, $500 a year.
So
with the
this
dues.
possibly could change based on the board.
It could. Yep.
Also, I see that you're talking about union employees and stuff. Now, would
Yes.
those be employees of our city? Or would that just be a separate entity for the trash pickup?
So the COG would have the employees. So the COG is a separate, like it's I don't know if Nelsonville is actually part of any other councils of governments, but there's quite a few in this region. So Stokeck, Buckeye Hills. So what they are is a partnership between governments for a service, right? And so but the employees would be the employees of the Council of Governments. We currently are represented by AFSCME, which is who represents the Nelsonville Union as well. But we have our own local that is specific to the recycling center that came to us from the solid waste district. And so presumably that same union would follow the employees to the Council of Governments.
Well, as far as I know, Mr. Conjimi's never given us any information about this.
Yes.
So it's very important that we see the black and white that you're talking about.
Mhm.
So could you get something and get together for us?
Well, I emailed everybody the draft versions of the agreements and bylaws quite some time ago. I'm happy to send those out again.
Please do.
And then I also, the second sheet that I gave you that has all the lovely graphs and charts, I created just because they're helpful in understanding the COG structure and what it would mean. So the operations and assets, it shows, so councils of governments can't have debt. And so most councils of government have a nonprofit that they work with and or one of the governmental agencies that's part of the COG who can, like, they'll work closely with them to hold any debt for the Council of Governments. So the first structure shows all of the assets and operations going to the Council of Governments, but the 501c3 would still own the building because we still have a mortgage on it. And we have 2 trucks that instead of leasing or owning outright, we still have loans on. So those would have to stay with the nonprofit unless we were able to buy those outright to transfer.
So you can get us a little put together of all the information that evidently Mr. Jimmy has.
Yeah, he has been asking a lot of questions and he has been at every single one of the potential founding members meetings. So he's
been out of town a lot, so.
He has been zooming in at 2 o'clock in the morning Hawaii time to make those meetings and participate in them.
But yeah, if
Yeah.
you could just put together a package for us rather
Mm-hmm.
than council.
Yeah, so we could, also see the costs.
Yes.
And where we're at with that, because the biggest fear that we all have is once we do something like this, we don't want our rates to be increased,
Right.
the horror stories that you hear. Exponentially, yes,
Right.
and that's our biggest fear, just
Yeah.
keep it affordable for the citizens of Nelsonville.
I mean, I think that as a group, there has been an interest expressed in some additional programs that could benefit the region. But a lot of those have like grant funding as a possibility to help fund them. It doesn't have to be outright operating costs that are generated through fees for service. So we've been working on getting grant funding, for example, for a hard to recycle facility so that year-round people would have a place they could take household hazardous waste, tires, styrofoam, like other things of that, books, electronics, like things of that nature. And so there's been looking for grant funding for that type of thing.
Is there any opt-out if we do decide to go with this? Is there an option of so many months or whatever?
Yeah, so the current version of the bylaws allows you to give notice that you no longer want to be part of the Council of Governments 6 months before the end of the fiscal year or before.
The
but
first
it's
fiscal year.
Any fiscal year, yeah. So there's provisions in there for adding new members and for members leaving the Council of Governments.
Any more questions for the young lady?
I have a couple. So is there a deadline to join?
There is not strictly a deadline to join. So there needs to be 2 governmental agencies who join together to form the initial COG. And right now the Solid Waste District in Amesville are much further along in the legislative process than any of the other communities. And so there has been, one of the considerations is they may go ahead and file while the other governments are still deciding whether to join or not. And that's partially why the negotiation meetings have been continuing with any potential members, is we want to make sure that the agreement and bylaws are agreeable to all of the potential founding members, whether it's that they join this year or they join in 5 years, right? So we want everybody to be comfortable with the foundation documents that will allow them to join.
That's another thing, joining, is there, you mentioned 5 years there, and then again, you mentioned 5 years previous. Is there any reference to how long we have to sign a contract or do a contract or?
There's not, and there's two different pieces to this. There's actually becoming a member of the Council of Governments, and then there's contracting for services with the Council of Governments. And those two are a little bit separate, and there's gonna be a suite of services that are available for folks to contract for services with, and those prices would be set based on the service that each individual community wants.
Okay.
So is there an attorney on retainer?
There is a attorney on retainer, and it's Warren Grody with Bricker and Graydon up in Columbus. That law firm has been involved in forming many councils of governments and tends to be the legal counsel for a lot of Ohio's council of governments.
Could you say her name again?
Warren Grody.
Okay,
Oh,
where?
jeez.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I don't know. Where? Okay.
And it's Bricker and Graydon. They are pricey, and so we have been increasingly attempting to use various entities' legal advice when possible, though. So
What kind of charges do they give you?
I don't know, but we've spent about $20,000 on the foundation documents with the nonprofit. So a lot.
Okay.
Some of that is because while councils of governments exist in other states like Pennsylvania for recycling, compost, and trash services, this would be the first in the state of Ohio.
Very good.
And how many
Anybody else?
counties are we thinking about? Are you trying to get involved in this? Hocking, Athens?
So initially, our ideal would be Athens and Hocking, which is the nonprofit service area. There are other solid waste districts in the region, though, that have been expressing interest in potentially joining and contracting for services. We haven't reached out to any other municipalities. And then Athens Township has also been interested. They've kicked around franchising in Athens Township off and on over several years, and a lot of Ohio townships are franchising for services, mostly because of road wear and tear. And so they've kicked that idea around. And so they're looking at potentially joining and looking at potentially franchising, but they haven't made any firm decisions on that.
So basically, the sooner we get on board, the better off we're gonna be?
I mean, it certainly will give you, you've bought yourselves 2 years in terms of the contract, so it gives you plenty of time to be heavily involved in the leadership of the Council of Governments, which will give you more control over the services and the price. And so in that way, yes.
I really, once I read what Athens was trying to do, I really have an issue with that.
Yeah.
I really do. Is there a way to control that?
Everybody is gonna have to come to some sort of an agreement. And I think if you feel strongly, your best bet would be to send a message to Mr. Kangemi as soon as possible, so that at the next meeting, which is tomorrow at 2, he knows what your concerns are. And if there's a board structure you're particularly comfortable with, expressing that as well.
Okay, tomorrow at 2, and he's aware of that.
Yes. Yeah.
And where is that?
It's not a public meeting. So the negotiating is, each community was supposed to send delegates to those meetings. Unfortunately for Nelsonville, it happened during a tumultuous time, and so he's been
Yes.
attending those. And initially, I know, Mr. Flowers, you were on those invite lists, but I don't think you're on the
No,
list
I don't think
anymore, because after that first one, you hadn't been coming.
Right.
So there's essentially 2 representatives from most communities, but Nelsonville has only been represented by 1. And it's traditionally been like a mayor and a council person, or a mayor and a city service safety director, which is similar to what Tom Canjemi's position is for
Okay.
Nelsonville.
Joanne?
I just had the one thing about the 7-member board being so lopsided. I think that should be a big consideration on this committee's group. And I also, from just the last things that she said, that there needs to be a city member of council that's involved with that, just not the city manager. And I feel quite strongly about that.
Well, that's what the lady just said.
I know she said that, and I totally agree with her.
Okay, anybody else? All right, we're gonna close this, and next, thank you very much for coming.
You're welcome.
And if you get this packets ready for us.
Okay. Sure thing.
Thank you.
Another
you.
copy of my hand it
I
out.
do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Cohen, you now have the floor, sir.
Well, we haven't had a meeting for quite a while.
Yes, sir, and I
So,
take full blame for that.
it's all right, but, phase 2 water is a project that's in process right now. All the main is in except for Burr Boulevard.
Except for what?
Burr
Borough.
Boulevard.
Oh, okay.
Boulevard. I put a stop to them till the end of the month. As far as finishing putting the main in, they've got tie-ins they can do. They're finishing services up in Frog Hollow. But, I put a stop to it on Burr Boulevard because of the tunnels towers. Because it comes down Poplar Street and onto Burr Boulevard and then back down Chestnut. I know PD and fire have done everything they could to make it as safe as they could for people. It would be, the trench would be gravel. And I don't want to gravel or somebody taking the chance and falling or something.
Thank
So we pushed that off. So it's kind of delayed asphalt a couple weeks. The tentative start date for asphalt was June 5th. And it's pushed that off a couple weeks, but I would rather push that off than have somebody fall or a wheelchair or somebody with prosthetic going down through there and falling.
Or an old
something. Yeah, in the gravel that's not level. So, they've got tie-ins to finish up in Frog Hollow. They got 4 tie-ins. They finished Commerce Street today. They're finishing services up there in Frog Hollow, and then it's Burr Boulevard, and then phase 2 water will be done. About 2 weeks before they start the asphalt, they'll go through and dig the trenches back out and put 6 inches of CDF in. We changed that 4 years ago.
Yeah, CDF.
When I first got here.
It's compactable fill.
It's dense with fill. It's almost like concrete, but it's diggable.
Right.
So one of the problems that Nelsonville's had all these years is when somebody dug in the road, they just put sand and gravel back in it and put asphalt on it, and then you end up with a pothole again. So you put the CDF in there and it goes, the city of Columbus, that's rules. I mean, you have CDF everything within so many feet of the road, just so there's no, so we changed that here, so that way to cut back on all the potholes that we end up with.
Dips, yeah.
So that'll be the end of that project. Phase 4 sewer is going out for bid at the beginning of next month. And it will consist of Scenic Lane, Riverside Drive, Scott Street, and Burr Boulevard from the top of the hill down to the other side of the overpass where the force main is. Because it's an old pipe from the end of the force main up the hill. So we're gonna replace it, and they're gonna drill it in with bore pipe, which is a lot thicker. So that way we don't have to worry about issues with it. That'll be replaced.
Now, you said that there's bids going out. Do you
Then
have,
it'll go out for bid.
okay, do you have a date for that?
I just noticed at the beginning of next month.
Okay.
DLZ takes care of all that for us.
Oh, all right.
They do all that, and then we'll have a bid opening date, and we'll do it here in council chambers, and anybody who's been on it shows up, and it's sealed bids, and they're all opened at the same time. That's where we pick. The alley that on 4th Street, between 4th Street and Elizabeth Street, that runs between College and Clinton. There's some issues with the sewer there dumping into the storm tunnels. It was brought to our attention. We've been in contact with the EPA. we're getting that taken care of, but that's gonna be included in phase 4 sewer. Right now, for anybody listening, I don't know if anybody's listening, they're trying to get in all houses, DLZ is. They'd like to talk to everybody there, they're looking in the basements. There's a sewer that runs up 4th Street that's got laterals teed off of it that were never tied over. I don't know where yours was put in, how long it's been there, but there's laterals going to every house that were never tied over, they're just capped.
Well, so are they confined or?
No, they're good sewers, they're just the laterals, they were just never tied over to the houses.
They put them in, but they never.
I had a camera.
Tied it together, so they came out.
I had a camera company. I had a camera company come into town and camera all the sewers up through there, and it's what they call a tractor. It's like almost like a remote control car that they put down in the
Right.
sewers. And it's got what they call a lateral camera on it, so there's an extra small camera on it. And when you get to a lateral, they can shoot it up the lateral and see where it goes, and every one of them are capped off. So they've never been used. So we're working with the EPA right now. We're good with them, we're working on things. It's just, get into houses to see where they're at in the basements, and it's not gonna be at any cost to any citizen. The EPA is taking care of all of it.
Now, what exactly are they going to do in the basements?
They go in and look, and they gotta see where the sewers are at, the depths on them,
They put
because,
dye on 'em.
because then they're gonna have to bring them outside the houses. There'll have to be a plumber going in every basement when they cut these in. But it will be at no cost to any citizen.
Oh,
It's all taken
Is
care of.
that alley right up there where Pleasant View goes up in that alley?
It's the alley right behind Dan's house.
Yeah, that's the one where Pleasant View goes up and then there used to be a stop sign.
No,
No.
the alley behind it. Like if you're
Oh,
on
I
4th
got
Street,
you.
it's the alley
Yeah,
behind it.
it's that road, it's real rough.
We were gonna put a new sewer main down the alley. There's a storm tunnel running down that alley. There's no way to do it without double main in that alley. So we'd have 2 sewer mains going down through it. And there's some buildings, some big garages that are right on the edge of the alley. There's no way to dig down through it without caving those in.
When you say those things are capped off, you mean they're capped off and they're not being used? And those are sewer lines? So where's the sewer go?
Storm tunnel in the back.
No kidding.
And it's hard to tell. It might have been that way for the last 90 years where nobody knows.
Jesus.
That's where the smoke comes from.
It's amazing.
Have you smelled that smell on the side of Mason City Hill?
So we know on this side of Mississippi.
Yeah.
That's coming from the sewer plant.
No.
When we went down there to the sewer plant for the ribbon cutting, he said that they had something up on Mason City Hill that was
It's a sewer line, but it's not coming from the sewer plant. So we take Murray City and Carbon Hill,
Right.
and they all come from the side of the hill.
right.
So it's force main, and right down across from
Kenny's house.
Jim's development. I can't think what that's called.
Oh, where Devin
Where
lives.
Devin lives.
Yeah,
There's a lift station right there, a big lift station.
right across the road.
That's the last one that pumps it over the hill. So we're taking sewer from Brookville, Murray City,
Right.
Carbon Hill, and everything in between those and Brookville. And what it's doing is where our sewers are old on this side, the manhole
You mean on the other side of the hill?
on this side of the hill,
Our side.
our side of the hill.
Okay.
So what it is, the manhole wasn't designed for that. So it's coming over the hill with force,
Mhm.
and it's hitting in that manhole, and instead of going down, just straight down the next pipe, it's hitting in that manhole and swirling.
That's the smell.
So we're looking
It's
into, they make a charcoal filter that goes on the manhole lids. It's supposed to cut a lot of that out. So we're looking into doing that. Sean already adds an additive at that lift station. It's supposed to help take smell away. It does a really good job. It's just where it hits that manhole and swirls.
Yeah.
And it just, the piping's not at the diameter it needs to be. So when it hits, it's not going as fast, so it's just.
And that won't be included in any of the work.
That's not included in this, not in this part.
Cause I mean, there's sometimes, you know, I'm not complaining to you, but I know people that live right there and it is, when you come over the hill, sometimes it just hits you.
I know, I've smelled it. I mean, we're looking into everything we can, but, I mean, it's just where it's hitting in that manhole.
It's been,
I mean, unfortunately, Nelsonville wasn't designed for all these other cities, our sewer wasn't designed to take that. I mean, we just, everything keeps getting upgraded and still going through the same fight.
Yeah.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I talked to Sean about it when school first got in session. Because 2 mornings in a row, my granddaughter vomited outside the car. The smell was rancid. And he told me then that what you spoke of tonight is the same thing he shared with me. That he said that there's a product that they can pour into that lift station also. And he thought in the beginning, that's what was happening. They weren't using that product to dispel that. But I talked to him today down at the sewer plant dedication, and he said, we're still working on it.
Yeah, we're actually using that stuff. He's just trying to, it's very, very, very expensive.
Oh, I'm sure.
So he's just slowly adding more and trying to get it to the right spot. We don't want to overdump into it and then have to back off, and it's the cost of it. So he just keeps slowly bringing it up. And I talked to Michael Betts from DLZ, and that's where we got to talking about the charcoal filters that go in manhole lids that will cut a lot of that before it ever makes it out.
It used to be when we came over the hill in the morning, you would get it, and I haven't had that, but we had so much rain, I thought maybe that helped wash some of that on through, but I hate to live down there because it really is.
It's probably watered down, but it's still the same problem. Like, we go up there and pull that manhole lid right now, and it's just, it hits in there and just swirls.
would be the solution to bypass that manhole cover tie and then bypass around it.
Probably put a new manhole in. Yeah, we gotta have our manhole space where they're at, because if we have a blockage,
Can't get into it.
the jet truck can only go 500 feet. So if we need to jet a line, if it gets plugged up, we've gotta be able to get into it to jet. So like, when Monroe Street, when they just redone Monroe Street, I actually had to add one. I made them add a manhole on your side of canal because it would have been too far, and if it would have plugged up, we'd have never been able to jet it out.
But did you see how much when it rains, right at Monroe and Jefferson? Or I mean Monroe and
North Alley.
Fayette. Monroe and Fayette, it just comes right over the road when it rains heavy. There's no place for it to go.
I'll look at it next time it rains. I did North Alley. We've got a problem down there. We've got a meeting Wednesday morning, so that's all getting brought up with Michael.
Yeah, it goes over to the high school also. I mean, there's a big mess over there.
Yeah,
Speaking of the jet truck, that's getting a few years on it. You guys have a company come in and maintenance that?
yeah, we had maintenance over here.
Because that was an expensive purchase.
Yeah, we had
I'm
maintenance
sure.
over here. That was the greatest purchase in the world.
Yeah, because they used to have a company come in and do that. If they had an issue, they had a subcontract company.
The greatest thing about that truck is that we have an emergency. When you call in a nuke sticker, hydro excavation is the only means of excavation where you don't have to wait on marks.
No, you don't have to wait on what?
Marks, form the mark utilities, because if you go out there with a hoe and you're digging, you could tear something out, hydro excavation truck won't do that. It's the only means of excavation that's allowed that you can just go out.
Hydro excavation is using water to cut through the soil.
You use water to cut it, and the back truck sucks it as you're cutting it. It just cuts and it sucks it out and makes it over. Because actually tomorrow we're going to be using the back truck at Nelson Commons Park. The students at Tri-County made a new sign for Nelson Commons Park. And it's got the star brick on it, the city of Nelsonville. I believe it was the chamber. Is it the chamber that Bill's part of? The chamber had it made. It's a beautiful, beautiful wood sign. So we went and bought, we were responsible to get the posts and stuff for it, so I wanted something really good. I got 8x8 cedar post, something that's gonna look really good with this, I mean, it's a gorgeous design. It's two-sided, both sides, and, it's gonna actually set towards Canal Street, it's gonna go over the sidewalk. It's gonna be 12 feet to the bottom of it, so you can see it coming down Canal Street from either direction. And then we're setting that tomorrow.
What does that just say, Nelson Commons?
It's, I got a picture somewhere of that one. It's Nelson Commons Park, it's got the chamber on it, the rotary on it, city of
Oh, I
Nelsonville,
got you.
Tri-County.
Like the signs you would see coming into a town sometime.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8 foot long. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous sign. Tri-County did an amazing job on it. I was just told, hey, we're getting a sign.
Well, he's looking that up. When he showed those street signs and people saw them, I've had several people comment how nice they got and what an improvement it was to Nelsonville. And so this thing is like that. That's huge.
And it's two-sided, same thing.
Same on both sides, yeah.
Exact same thing.
Walk this way, my man. A lot of people commented on that, Jason. Yeah.
Yeah, I called Bill when I took it up. We've got to see this thing, because he never seen the deal.
Oh, that is,
Could I
oh,
make-
that's.
Yeah, it's under Bill's
Lovely.
direction.
Could I make a
So,
suggestion while we're doing this, as a street sweeper stuff?
But it's gonna go over the sidewalk, where 3 foot long. One post will be behind the fence, and one will be right on the edge of the sidewalk, the outside sidewalk. And,
So is that right up on the corner of the park there?
no, so midway in the park, there's a tree going where it died.
Mhm.
So there's an empty spot, so we're putting it right there. Me and Bill sat and looked and tried to figure out the best way to do it with it being a double-sided sign. We wanted it to where you could see it from either direction.
Yeah.
That was the best spot to put it because where the tree had died and it was going, the other tree, so if we put it right in the middle, it's open. There's no trees blocking. You
Oh,
just see it. You'll see it from both directions.
I was gonna ask that question too, because there's a lot of trees out
Yeah, no, where it's at, there's a 80-foot section where there's no trees, because it's where there's space, where there's space.
so they can see it coming and going.
You'll see it, if everybody on the train will see it, anybody on the
That's
Rockies will
good,
see
that's
it.
really good.
Either way you're going Canal Street, you're going to read it. College Street. We're gonna replace the water main on College Street, the city. This is our first, this will be the first project that the city's really done by themselves. That water main is not good. We've fixed it quite a few times.
Where?
College Street.
Oh, that's up by,
Just
the street.
It's right there where Pleasant View and
Yeah.
everything cuts off.
Yeah, it goes up there.
Goes up the
Yeah.
hill. We've already saw cut it. Dave Weber was in the crew that's in town. They've got a really big walk behind saw. And Dave told us to take it and use it, so we used it to saw cut. Because all we have is partner saws. There's 6 inches of asphalt with brick under it. And our saws aren't big enough to cut through everything. So we use Dave's saw. We've got it cut. We just haven't started digging yet. The reason we want to get it done sooner than later is when they asphalt Franklin Street or Court Street, we're gonna piggyback off them being already there, having the equipment there, and we're gonna pave it. So everything that, I know this is street, but everything that we're paving is piggybacking off of this project this year, because we don't get charged haul charges. And with the equipment already there, we're gonna, like, they're doing Frederick and John Street, so we're doing everything else in Procola. And then that way, that's done, we don't have to worry about it. They're doing Franklin to Fort and up. We're gonna do from Franklin to Washington Street, and then from Fort around to Washington Street, around the corner there, where it turns into one-way Jefferson. We're gonna go ahead and do that because I don't see any sense of not fully paving the road if you're
Are you
paving.
going to grind anything down or are you gonna add to? That's the
What
question.
we're doing, we're grinding.
Grinding, good,
Anything that I have done, I haven't grinded.
because the curbs keep disappearing.
Well, that and drains. We have a real problem on Poplar Street with drains
Mhm.
because
There's
when
still
they
that.
paved it, they just kept paving over top
Yeah,
of
drain
pavement.
that's this wide is now.
We actually had to go in 2 years ago and cut the road out
That's all you're
to
doing.
get it somewhere for the water to go in. Because where they just keep paving on top of pavement instead, it's really not that much more to have a grind. All out the grindings, pave back on top of it, put you back where you're supposed to be. So everything we do, that's what I'm doing.
So when you make these plans to go ahead of someone so that the surface topping can be put on afterwards, how long does it take you to do that? To decide what you're going to do?
To decide as far as what roads I'm gonna do.
To get ahead of yeah, I can't think what I want to say. The paving, not the paving, what I want to say. The street cover.
Yeah, the paving.
Okay, it is paving.
You're paving. Yeah, not
Yeah.
concrete paving. Asphalt.
What streets I wanna pave?
Yeah,
Is that what you mean? How I-
yes.
So I get a hold of, McKee's at the beginning of the year. Jason, I call him, he's the one that does all their estimates. I'll give him a list of roads. I want individual separate estimates on all these roads. And then I get them, I go through them, and then I look at where the project's going. And I try to keep everything right with the project, so that way we piggyback and we don't have to pay. I'm thinking the haul charge is like $4,500
That's just to get the equipment.
just to get the equipment there. Well, if I piggyback off of the project, it's already there. I don't have to pay anything. So I can do all these streets without ever paying a haul.
Yeah, that's good planning. Yeah, that's good planning.
So,
Kudos to you. for
and the way we're doing it is, like I said, Frog Hollow this year, everything in Frog Hollow is gonna be done. So we're not gonna have to worry about that. That's done. And then where the next project's at, we'll piggyback off that next year. And we'll just keep doing that, and it does larger areas at one time instead of one street here, go 5 blocks down and do a half a block.
Yeah.
And I would rather just do whole streets and then we don't have to worry about it. Just like in front of her house, where we're gonna do Franklin Street from Ford and go
To
east
Jefferson.
over the one-way Jefferson. It makes no sense not to do that because we're doing Franklin Street from the hospital clear to Fort Street. So why wouldn't we just do the rest of that? Or the same with Fort Street. They're doing from Franklin clear to Scott Street. So why wouldn't we do the section from Franklin to Washington and then that whole street's done?
Mhm.
And we don't have to worry about it. It's done for now.
Thank you, Jason.
You're welcome.
Took the words out of my mouth. Thank you very much for all that you're doing for the city. I appreciate it, and I'm sure everybody else does too.
We're trying.
Forward-thinking is huge.
We get a lot of complaints about potholes. Unfortunately, like I said at the beginning here, there wasn't any planning done before when it came to backfilling something in a road. So we end up with a lot of potholes. We try to fix what we can, but I've got 6 guys that are doing water, sewer. They have to do the mowing at the fields. I mean, so we're doing the best we can. And I don't want to eat up all my budget on potholes because then that's all we're ever going to do is potholes. We're never going to do anything.
Yeah. So why not fix them while you got the
Yeah.
equipment?
Sounds like a great idea.
I'm good on my riding mowers. There you go. I really am good.
I want to give a shout out to the fire department too, because last week my guys were down mowing Hollyfield and Wednesday. They went down because opening weekend was supposed to be last weekend for the second weekend in a row. But my guys done a great job. I had 2 of them come back. We got a broom for the skid steer and where it was flooded, they took it around the track, down the road. Cleaned all that up. The fire department was there and power washed everything inside the dugouts, the concession stand. Unfortunately, it flooded again 2 days later.
I brought the fridge back down for him yesterday.
And I did see something on Facebook over the weekend about the baseball field that was put on the football field. And I know this isn't utilities, but I just want to get it out there. We agreed to let them do that. They had to get permission from the Poly family, but
That's right.
football's not played down there anymore. They practice at the high school. We need to utilize those fields. There's a lot of kids playing this year. They needed the extra space. But the way they set it up and done it is the football field could still be used for football if it needed to be. So
The old,
Looks great down
the
there.
old fields used to be, once they got into the outfield or into the,
it was all grass. I mean, it was just a baseline you were doing.
yeah, but once they got into that dirt, it was in a cloud of dust, you know, I mean, they were putting it.
I give kudos to that youth league.
They look really nice.
They've done an
What
amazing
happens to the
job.
guy that was here the last meeting at Bob's Kid that was going to do all that stuff?
He's going to, not till summer.
Oh, but
He
he's gonna,
can't do it till summer. He's gonna paint and stuff. We're gonna do the wall. We picked up the paint Friday. I bought it. It was on sale, buy one, get one free. So what better time to buy it? Cause I needed 60 gallons.
so you paid for 30.
Yeah. So there's no way for him to power wash that wall. We can take the back truck out there and drive it right along and power wash that wall. And then we get the guys from up at Star. So I'm gonna have them paint that wall.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so very much.
I have one question about something I was asking the Sonic. Do you guys operate the street sweeper?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tim.
My observation, living where I live on Canal Street and watching them do it, and I'm not trying to tell anybody how to drive a street sweeper, don't get me wrong, but my observation is when I grew up down on the East End, the city would send my parents a notice. And that notice would say, on Wednesday, move your cars to the north side of the street. That way the street sweeper could go right straight up the street. Now, if you didn't move it, you got a ticket on your car.
Right, and that's how it should be.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're back to, there's only 6 guys back there that are trying to
Did it in whatever.
everything. So what it is we fit it in on.
So you can't put them on a schedule.
Right, so I'll be like, you know what, today, this is all we got going on, you're in the street sweeper. I mean, it's just, it's hard to make a daily schedule for it.
Well, let me ask you another question. How long would it take to sweep the streets? Because wouldn't it be a continuous type of a thing?
It is, but you gotta dump a lot. I mean, it took 2 days, 2.5 days to do the street.
Oh, God.
All the stuff. That's not
Where do we
really
dump that?
out back.
Do you really? Okay.
Thank you again, Mr. Cohen.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Appreciate it.
That's a small street sweeper.
It is a small street
That's
sweeper.
why they have to.
Yeah, I remember when you guys purchased it.
Because it's non-CDL, non-air brakes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It is a small one. It does what we need it to do. It's hard getting somebody in it nonstop. I mean, it would be great if we had like a part-time guy that that's all he did.
What did
Come
you,
in 4 or 5 hours a day and that's all he did.
what did you have some old retired dude?
Do you volunteer?
See, I
That's what I said too.
Yeah, why am I old? That's what I wanna know.
Profiling you, Johnny.
Mr. Sappington,
He's
it's
cool.
your turn, sir.
Yeah, wait a minute, hold on. No, I'm cool with that. Mine's old school.
Okay, we're gonna have Mr. Sappington, please.
I can be brief. Thanks for the invite to utilities meeting. I don't often get the chance to come talk at utilities. I did want to say on one thing real quick that Jason brought up. DLZ actually asked us, because they're having some trouble reaching residents where those sewer lines are capped off, and we need to get in and help figure out what we need to do. We're not sure if citizens are worried it's going to cost them or if they did something wrong, but it's not going to cost anybody anything. Well, nobody here it will cost. It will cost the state, but we will be reaching out directly to them, more directly. starting with phone calls, and I guess if we still can't reach you, we might try and come knock on your door, but we've got to get those fixed.
I believe they've got all of them at 10.
Yeah, I think it was 10 or 11.
Could you do mail out? I mean, you got their address through the water company.
They did get mailed a couple times, I think, and so we're gonna start, he asked my office to start calling them tomorrow, so we're gonna start tomorrow. So real quick, just that notice, if you're hearing from us, we're just trying to fix your sewer.
They only need to get in, they gotta look at the piping and the basement.
Yeah,
But they won't be digging in there.
They're not doing anything, they're not doing anything right now. It's just because the project hasn't even went out to bid yet. They've got to get in the basements and look so they can add that in there. So when it does go out to bid,
They'll know how to get to
if
it.
you were bidding the job, that way you'd have a scope of
Yeah.
what it is that you're doing.
where it's at. Okay. The other item just was, the chairwoman, did you want me to bring it up now or at the finance committee, the insurance recommendation? Oh. It's up to you. It's really, I just wanted,
What
might
do
as
you
well get it
say?
out there.
On the side, well,
It's listed on finance committee.
Or, I could just mention it, it's just that,
oh, the insurance, yeah.
yeah, the public entities pool, the city's liability insurance did send a letter to a number of us. The letter includes recommendations, 14 of which, to better the city's risk rating with the public entities pool. Unfortunately, the city has dropped to the worst risk rating in the pool, which is usually reserved for very large cities and not small towns like ours. So, I presume it's the goal of council, certainly our goal here at city, to better those risk ratings so that our premiums could be cheaper, and more affordable. There's 14 policies here. I was part of the meeting, although a lot of these recommendations to policy changes and other items, actually don't pertain to the finance office, but I did want to make sure that once it ended up in my inbox, that all of council had it. Because some of them pretty easy, low hanging fruit, like a stronger drug and alcohol policy in the handbook. Some of them a lot
So
harder.
all of these will improve our rating if we do these. Is that what you're saying?
That's right, that's right. So the insurance company has basically, so they sent somebody here, I met with the city manager and Diana and Jason, Diana was her name. And her job is to evaluate the city, make these recommendations, and if the city adopts them, not necessarily all of them, we can do it in a way that serves Nelsonville's interest. But if we show that we're considering them and adopting what works on our end, the insurance company says, look, they are doing their best, they're trying, they're improving, and we can make adjustments as needed. That's my quick elevator pitch on the public entities pool recommendations. Obviously, any effort put towards these lowers the city's premiums in future years compared to what they would be in those years. So that would be a prime interest of the auditor's office, of course, would be spend less money on insurance and more on the community.
Mhm.
Did you get the contracts that I asked for?
I emailed them. I can get paper copies. Did you want paper copies of them? Okay, I didn't get a paper copy, I'm sorry, but I will get them as soon as, as soon as we finish. That's all right.
I'd appreciate that.
Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, real quick, I just had a person email me. The rate for trash in Athens is $22.53.
Yeah.
But they've got front feet,
Yes,
they've got front,
they cover them, just to let you know. So,
and they're, oh, never mind.
yeah.
It's over that much. Anything else here?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right then.
I have a
I'm
question. How much money is in the fund for the trash container fee that we've been collecting?
We have, give me just a second as I look down our list.
Okay, it's time to clarify that trash container thing. The reason why I was always told that we did that was we were eventually going to buy our own truck and be totally self-sufficient.
So when that all first started,
That's what the
that's
goal
what it was.
Yes.
Like
Was on the
Lancaster,
buying
like
trash.
Lancaster, you pay a utility bill in Lancaster, and it's your gas, your water, trash.
Yeah.
Storm runoff, it's just a utility bill, everything's on. That was the original reason for doing that, was to save the money to buy our own truck. And then if we could hire one guy, two guys, and that would be their job. And if they were done early one day, 2 days a week, put them on the mower and they could, while other guys are out doing other things, water, sewer, they could mow and pick up the slack.
And that was the initial goal of that.
I think with those trucks though, because I've lived in cities where you had to have the actual container where they could just arm it and put it on the truck, drive down with, and they wouldn't have to have a rider.
Right.
You know, you could pretty much operate a one man on the truck.
The geography in Nelsonville won't allow for that. We would love a truck like that, but
Too many
you
hills.
have to have really flat,
Well, I
straight
can see that too,
streets.
yeah.
And so, I'm just saying.
Yeah, no, I can see, like, going up Mason City Hill trying to do it wouldn't
You
work,
can't,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, but I know that, since after talking took over, you quit running the alleys, was that correct? I was told that they weren't gonna run the alleys anymore.
Quit running the
They
alleys.
quit running the alleys and single axle.
I'm
trucks.
sorry, but could we just hold on here for a second? We've got to get finished with Taylor.
You just said he was done.
Oh, I just had a question.
Question. Yes.
The,
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
the number was, sorry, let me correct myself, $53,361. That's as of, February 29th. Typically, any numbers we give you guys is the last reconciled month, so. That's why
When
it's
did those
February.
figures start
When did we start collecting
though?
them?
Yes.
3
At
years ago.
this, yeah, 3 years ago at the start of the AHRC contract.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's what, 53,000?
361, yep.
Okay, anybody else? We are finished. Thank you all very much for your patience. Sir,